us.
British
Yeah.
accent.
It's sick.
Ladies and gentlemen, time for Rekha Basu. It's time for Rekha's Voice to find out what in the world she's going to be talking about. And judging by the article you have in front of you, Rekha, you were able to hang out with someone pretty special.
I was really privileged to be able to spend some time with Gabby Giffords on Monday. I had like half an hour exclusive chance to talk to her, which was really wonderful. She was in town with this Americans for Responsible Solutions. It's about lowering gun violence in the country. And for those of you who don't know, but who doesn't really, she's the former Arizona Congresswoman, Democrat, who was shot and who was actually believed to be dead initially. But she's through a long period of recovery. She's able to walk again. She's able to talk a little bit, but she still is unable to make full sentences. So, you know, she says words. It's something called aphasia, where I guess the memory for words, for language, flags a little bit, but her ability to understand is completely there. So she is just the most delightful person, though. She's so calm and sweet and courageous and generous of heart. I mean, if something like that had happened to me, you know, I would probably have gone into a deep funk for a very long time.
Been in seclusion somewhere.
Exactly, wanting to isolate myself from the world, and instead she's taken up this cause of, you know, preventing gun violence. And it's not Second Amendment, as she says. She's totally pro Second Amendment. She and her husband, the former astronaut Mark Kelly, both own guns. They both go target shooting out in a ranch that's owned by her mother in Arizona. She's completely supportive of allowing people to have guns, but she says there need to be categories of people who are denied guns and weapons permits, and those include people with a history of domestic violence or of stalking, people who have been shown to not just be mentally ill, but violent mentally ill, or have thoughts where there is someone who is trying to sound the alarm about them, but too often those people fall through the cracks. And that was the case in the case of her shooting, that Jared Lee Lochner had been making threats or had been saying things that suggested he was very unstable and quite prone to violence, but his parents were not able to do anything about it to take away his legal right to own guns. And that's the problem. You know, there are 30,000 gun murders in America every year, 30,000. And that makes us more than 20 times more prone to fatalities from gun violence. I mean, we have 20 times the gun violence of other advanced industrialized countries. So something is completely out of whack.
What was the response of her being in town? I know she spoke at the Capitol.
She spoke at the Capitol on Monday
stairs.
morning, and she spoke with a variety of, and actually, I mean, this I think is a shame. She spoke with a variety of other legislators or people who are running for Congress, but they were all Democrats, and this should be a bipartisan issue. There is no reason why Republicans can't also support, you know, certain nominal gun control or gun reform measures where you just keep guns out of the hands of potentially violent people.
Do you know, did she offer the ability to talk to people across the hall?
Well, it was not organized by her. It was organized by Americans for Responsible Solutions. But yeah, I mean, I believe that, you know, that opportunity is available to anyone. But the problem is that the National Rifle Association donates heavily to campaigns, and primarily to Republicans' campaigns, because they have tended to vote more in favor of less gun control measures.
Right.
So, so the people who were there, Patty Judge was there, Jim Maurer was there, both, you know, running for federal office, and then there were a couple of female legislators, actually one male legislator as well in the Iowa legislature, and they were talking about, one of them, Janet Peterson, State Senator Janet Peterson, she's from Des Moines, talked about the fact that before the Iowa legislature passed this bill that says you must issue a license to a person who's applying for one, there was something like 50,000 permits in existence for guns, and that has shot up now to 250,000.
Wow.
And you know, some of these people should not be carrying weapons. You know, there was a story in today's paper, for example, about a toddler in Dubuque who died because he got his hands on a .45 caliber and shot himself in the head. So there are parents who are not securing their guns properly, and there have been a lot of studies done showing how many households, you know, there's
But
one.
that isn't necessarily the type of keeping weapons out of the hands of people that you're talking about. You're talking more about the people that are unstable.
I'm talking about people that are unstable and are prone to violence, but I'm also talking about sensible gun control measures. For example, locking cabinets, locks on guns, things that will keep guns out of the hands of children. There's something like 20...
Well, that's just common sense.
Yeah, but they're not mandated by law. Some of these are not mandated by law, and they should be. It's like the seatbelt law, right? I mean, it's common sense, except when you don't use it. And, you know, so to make it a criminal offense, yeah, some of us really hate to give up our right to drive around without seatbelts on, but it saves children's lives in particular, and we're talking about kids. You know, then the other thing that was debated in the legislature last year was allowing children of any age to fire a weapon, any age, with their parents' supervision. And that doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense at all. Why would you let a 5-year-old child handle a weapon that's dangerous when the parent is allowed around? Then the kid thinks that's still okay.
I feel like what you say makes a lot of sense, and I'm not going to go into the politics of it, but I feel like it doesn't go over well in this state where a lot of people enjoy having their guns, going hunting, going target shooting, and things like that, and they hear limitations and they immediately think you're taking all of our guns away, as opposed to having specifics.
You're right, Jackie. People do think that, and I wish that we could shift the tenor of this discussion to talk to gun violence, not to just talk about the right to shoot game, because yeah, I don't think anyone is saying you shouldn't be allowed to do that. But there were there are more than 1,100 mass shootings a year in America. Mass shootings.
Yeah, and they're going up.
And they're going up. And, you know, Gabby Giffords and her husband, Mark Kelly, didn't become active in this gun reform cause until she was shot, because they saw children. There were 26 people killed that day, 20 of them children at the elementary school. And she said, you know, this is not okay. This is not acceptable that someone can can just walk into a school and start shooting. And there were warnings about the shooter. He had a propensity to go out of control. And yet there was nothing that could be done. So this is the great frustration.
What did you think? Since you had a few minutes with her that we weren't able to experience, what was your takeaway with Gabby Gifford?
I have to say, first of all, I think that she really has a remarkable spirit and strength and courage about her. And she's not in any way doctrinaire. She's a very gentle spirit and soul who just, wants what's right, frankly. The other takeaway was that she's still really struggling in her ability to speak. We don't realize that because she will show up at an event, but mostly it's other people who speak, and then she'll say a sentence or two at most at the end that she's able to put together. But she really has trouble speaking in full sentences, so it's sort of a bunch of words, and they certainly convey the full essence of what she's thinking. Like when she talked to me about the shooting itself, words like she mentioned the supermarket that it was in front of, that it took place, and die. She counted off the 6 people who were killed. And so, this is just, and I think that it's important for people to know this, because gun violence doesn't just kill people, it leaves people permanently disabled, and it's such a long road back, and for some people they'll never have completely recovered.
So her message was not, we need to change all the gun laws, we just need to target this one facet of the gun law to make it safer for everyone.
That you just have to tighten the conditions under which people are allowed to own guns, and the fact that they need to be kept securely. And she's not trying, as I said, she's a gun owner. She's totally pro Second Amendment, and I think that unfortunately the gun lobby has turned this into a debate about the Second Amendment when it really is not that. It's just about simple measures that, nobody is taking away any law-abiding citizen's right to own a gun and to use it under the right circumstances. But that's what they're trying to say is that that's what the gun control, the gun reform people want to do, is just take those away. And that's just not the case. And you look at someone like her,
just need to tighten the belt a little bit.
Exactly. Okay. I interviewed Mia Sioson. Remember her, Mia Rodolfo Sioson? She was one of the young women at the University of Iowa who was shot when Gang Lu, remember the fellow back in 1991 it was, I think that shooting was, because I had just moved to Iowa. I actually hadn't moved here yet when that happened. And she survived. Everybody else who was shot that day, died. She was the one survivor, but she was paralyzed from the neck down. And I went and interviewed her years later, and she couldn't talk. I mean, she had to just use a tube to express herself on a computer. And she was in a wheelchair. She was completely dependent on other people to do every single thing for her. She still had remarkable spirit. She has subsequently died. And she talked about how, and I said, you know, don't you ever feel sorry for yourself or wonder why me? And she said, no, I feel very lucky to live in America. I think she was originally Filipino born. She said, you know, where I have so many rights and so much assistance and medical care, and you know, people in other countries can't afford that. And yes, we are so lucky to live in America, but as my concluding sentence in the column said, is that, you know, we're also really behind when it comes to sensible gun laws. Why should we be 20 times more prone to gun deaths than people in other countries?
Okay, so if people want to see the article, they can go online?
It's in yesterday's, it's in, you can go online. It's in yesterday's opinion section.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will be right back. It's 8:51. You're watching CW Iowa Live in West Des Moines.